everyone who had to buy an EV has bought it now. The next lot, which are the earlier majority, they're a lot more skeptic.
You can live with an electric if you have a charger at just one end of your commute.
They're the best automatics.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get a better automatic than an EV today.
On the surface of it, yes, an EV has less moving parts. It's therefore more reliable, less service. But there's this other big sort of devil in it, which is software.
I think residual value or resale value is a bomb waiting to explode. Hello and welcome to Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
And I'm Sergius Barretto, and our topic for today is, should your next car be an EV? Now, almost before we get to the next car being an EV, you've had a lot of experience with EVs because I remember maybe 20 or perhaps more than that, 20 years ago, there was a Reva on the cover, which was India's first EV, right?
Yeah, I think the first time we had an electric car on the cover of Autocar, I think it was May 2000.
Okay.
That's 24 years back.
24 years back, yeah.
And that issue really bombed, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, it did. A funny looking car. What was it? A two-door. Clearly, Reva way ahead of its time. Of course, at that time, it was a glorified golf cart, not anything like the EVs we have today. But don't forget, the EV world globally hadn't really developed back then.
True.
So really, that was our first taste of EV. Reva, well ahead of its time, low voltage stuff, just a two-door. Great fun, I have to say. But, getting more than 70, 80 kilometers range out of it was quite challenging. So I think then we had a bit of a gap. Then I think Mahindra were first in the EV game when they brought it over. They got the E2O. But really, they kind of lost the lead. And it's Tata Motors really who jumped in on it, as we know. Started off again with low voltage EVs, basically, on the Tigor.
Or quick conversions.
Yeah, quick conversions. And then finally, as we know, it was the Nexon. I think it was when 2019, thereabouts, when it just took the market by storm. First high voltage, 300 volt EV. And I have to say, Tata Motors really had the vision. And I would even go as far and say it was the chairman, N. Chandrasekaran, who actually pushed for EVs. Because from what I understand, there were a lot within Tata Motors who were quite hesitant. There's no business case for it. You can't make money. But I think it was his vision that let's just push it. Let's get into this space fast. And today, Tata Motors dominates the EV market. So it's that's really been the story. Not so many EVs out there. Obviously, we got it's growing very fast. But I think, it's been a pretty good start, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for Tata, what they did brilliantly also is timing. While others said, hey, let's wait for the born EVs and things like that. It's just a quick conversion, get in. Because the government was behind it. Why would you not catch that wind?
I completely, Sergius. And I think, here we have to hand it to the government. I think a couple of things. One is 5% GST.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
True.
I think that singularly has really driven EV sales because really it's kind of made the gap between ICE and EV, much more, not
small
great.
difference.
This is small, not small, but still not too much of a...
It's not undigestible, yeah.
Exactly. And then, of course, on top of it, you have states which have pitched in, no road tax, no registration. And on expensive cars, that's quite a lot.
True.
Then you've had FAME policies. Of course, there's more for the two-wheelers. So I think government's done a fair bit and we have to compliment them for that.
True. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, at the higher end, like you said, on the expensive cars, it makes a big difference. There are, ICE and EV cars that are similarly priced or slightly more affordable because of you're saving that huge chunk on registration road tax. So
exactly.
Cars like the Mercs and even BMW, the i4, fantastic value. As a 4-door electric car.
The i5 coming here.
Exactly. So it's, absolutely. I think... The government, as you said, yes, they really sort of pushed. Tata took advantage of that, came in very, very quickly, got everyone, I would say, excited. We can say, whet everyone's appetite.
I think the numbers say, we started from nothing. I think last year was really the big jump.
Right.
EV sales almost doubled. I think just shy of 100,000. I think EVs today are about 2.3% of the total market. That's small, but it's still not insignificant. I mean, it's 100,000 is a big number. And I think, again, limited by the choice that there is. But again, now there's a whole debate on, on EVs themselves. A lot of questions being asked about EVs as well. I think one of the main things also is from what EVs stand for, which is lowering your CO2 impact. Because today we know CO2 is public enemy number one. I mean, global warming is real. We are feeling it every day, especially with
Mumbai.
Yeah, so I think that's one question which is being raised, is that are EVs actually as green as they are made out to be? And frankly, I think they are, honestly, because I think it's fair to say that EVs definitely may be dirty to produce, in the sense dirty, they are much more energy intensive. And if your energy comes from fossil based, is more CO2 intensive. Let's not forget, right from procuring the raw materials, which is mining in places like also Australia and all, very, very energy intensive. You need a lot of energy to extract the lithium out of it. But again, you go to
it all the way.
That's right. But then when you go to South America, it's on the surface of these dried lakes, so it's much more less energy intensive to extract over there. You got many more chips in EVs, so which again, chips are energy intensive to produce. But I think net over the life cycle, I think there are studies which say that within, let's say 10-15,000 kilometers, depending on the type of EV, obviously the bigger EVs with bigger batteries will take a lot more. Just the fact that there's zero emission, they just kind of overtake the kind of, let's say, the penalty or the high CO2, let's say, they produce in production. So I think overall, I think it's fair to say that EVs are the solution to going CO2 to kind of meet our CO2 targets. There's no two ways about that. But again, customers, they have their own challenges as well.
True, absolutely. No, and I fully agree, Hormazd. And, in terms of production processes, as with everything in the world today, it's going to get more cleaner and greener. So that would come down as well. There are advances being made.
That is a good point. I mean, right now, even in a worst case situation, let's say India, 60-65% coal, coal-fired plants.
Electric plants.
I still, despite that, I mean, they say that even an EV, let's say, charged, with the dirtiest energy source or power source, is still overall cleaner, purely because EVs are so much more efficient than an IC engine.
Plus, you also get rid of, the local tailpipe emissions, which is also, another...
Absolutely, because I think one thing is CO2 and the other thing is emissions at a local level.
Exactly.
So, a street level, where really, that's a health hazard. That is a health hazard. CO2 is not a health hazard. It's really all about global warming. CO2 is not poisonous, as we know, but it's a greenhouse gas.
Right.
And has its much deeper implications because it's making the climate go haywire. Climate change is real. We know about it. So I think there are two sides to, emissions. One is obviously CO2 and one is the dirty tailpipe emissions, which is of NOx, CO and HC, which is all gone with an EV.
So that's clearly, I think, also what has driven customers to buy these electric vehicles. Everyone wants, obviously, to try something new, new technology, but the whole green movement, I think that has really pushed customers to buy it. And we've had the early adopters, as with any new tech, they've rushed in. But it is slowing down now, right, Hormazd? I mean, we have seen even globally, people are now maybe stepping back. Why do you think that's happening? I mean,
I think, clearly early adopters, I think everyone who had to buy an EV has bought it now. The next lot, which are the earlier majority, they're a lot more skeptical. So let's look at the early adopters, I think, why they bought it. They just wanted to buy into their EV, let's say, movement, so to speak. They wanted new technology. They just, and don't forget, a lot of these early adopters, it wasn't a replacement car. It's a supplement car. They still, most of them, I think, still have an ICE vehicle in their households. So, I mean, I know people who've got, a friend of mine has got an S-Class and he's got a Tigor EV, and sometimes he prefers driving the Tigor EV over the S-Class just because of the way it is. And I think, also, as I said, the EVs haven't been that ridiculously expensive. Again, thanks to the government. So price, let's look at what the issues are with EVs when you look at it. I mean, the typical thing is the price. I think the price they are more expensive, no doubt about it. Still substantially more expensive. But as you said, it's not completely out of whack.
Right.
I think range, that is an issue, but if you're going out of town, but I think within the city, it's not an issue at all.
And not if you have two cars, as you were just saying.
Exactly, because you can use one car to go out of town. So I think for the city, EVs are absolutely, I mean, I don't think you should buy anything else, frankly. Because let's not forget, even the way EVs drive, they're the best automatics.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get a better automatic than an EV today. You can, they're better than any torque converter, CVT, DCT, whatever. They are the best automatics today. So from an ease of driving, they are fantastic. They are quiet.
True.
They are low stress. I mean, they're just so effortless to drive that, to be honest, a lot of first-time drivers enjoy driving an EV. I don't know how many buy them, but it's just that effortlessness of driving. It doesn't stress you. It's that instant torque, very responsive, linear power delivery. So I think that's one factor which really people don't talk about too much, that they are absolutely fantastic to drive in the city. I mean, you've seen us. I always want to jump into an EV. Today, I think I'm going to snatch the comment from you guys and take it home. So, but just because it's just so easy to drive. Talk about the highway later, but I think EVs are a city phenomenon. So that's where they are.
And also at this price point, Hormazd, like you were saying, the automatics. If you're looking at an affordable automatic, you're going to end up with an AMT.
Yeah.
Which is like the worst form of automatics, So if you look at an EV, an affordable EV, whether it's a Tigor or the Tiago.
But the delta between an AMT and an EV is quite large. So we have
exactly.
to
Yeah, of course. But I mean, it's you're getting the smoothest kind of automatic experience.
Exactly.
Which you won't get in a budget hatchback.
No, absolutely.
Just won't get.
You won't even get that same experience in a luxury ICE car, honestly. Yeah, because I was smooth. A torque converter is, even on a Range or a Merc or whatever, it's just not as smooth as
seamless as a
Tiago EV. So, that's just how the technology is. But again, coming back to, I think the range, because their city phenomenon, range isn't so much a problem. It's only when you take it out when it becomes an issue. And I think the other thing is charging. I think it's an interesting statistic. I think the Tata Motors guys told me that over 90 or 95% of Nexon customers all have home charging.
Yeah, right.
Which just goes to tell you that how many did not buy the car because there was no home charging. So I think that's been one hurdle, is not public charging, but home charging. Because if you have home charging, it's even more convenient than an ICE vehicle, because you can charge the car at night. It's like having a petrol pump at home. You can fill up when you want or top up when you want. You don't even have to wait in a queue.
Exactly.
As you would in at a fuel station. So even if it takes just 10 minutes, you don't even have to do that. You can charge it at home. So it's actually flipped. It's even more convenient than an ICE car if you have charging at home, and you can charge it at your convenience in the night or whenever you want. You don't have to queue up. It's completely at your thing. But when you don't have home charging, that's when it becomes really difficult, because all said and done, people don't like the inconvenience of having to wait. They don't like the inconvenience of not knowing if the charger is working or not, having to fiddle with apps, all that kind of thing. So I think, what's happening is that home charging to me is becoming a bit of a deterrent. Yeah. But coming back to the answer, should your next car be an EV? If it's for the city and you've got home charging, the answer is 100% yes. But if you're taking it out of town, that's a different story, as you know, because I think for me, the test of any EV is whether it can go to Mahabaleshwar and back in one shot, go there in one shot. Yeah,
the Maha test.
The Maha test, yeah, exactly. And I think right now, two cars I've done which have done it seamlessly. One was the EQS when I drove it earlier, and right now the Q8 e-tron, which had a good 38%. I mean, everything else is quite marginal. Smaller cars don't even do it. You have to charge on the way, because 0 to 4,500 feet, it really saps the battery. Sure. I think the other test also is to do, let's say, Mumbai, Pune and back in one shot, because you don't want to, if you're going for a day trip, you don't want to be worried about charging the car over there. So I think long distance is a different issue. I think, the market is, it's more for cars in the city. But I mean, Sergius, you've been driving them. You've had a you've had a long trek to Daisar and back.
Yes,
regularly.
True.
I don't think you had a problem.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's a long city stretch. 32 kilometers one way, so 65 in a day. and I don't have a charger at home.
But we have it at the office.
Exactly, you have it in the office, and I think I successfully proved with all of our long-term cars that you can live with an electric if you have a charger at just one end of your commute, whether it's your home or your office or the factory or wherever, at your business establishment. And what's also interesting almost is the weekends. I mean, I remember with the Q8, I kept the Q8 for a while. It did the weekend easily. So Friday, leave office, headed home. We did the drive home. Of course, Saturday we roamed around. Sunday we came back to town, actually went back home. And then Monday back here, it was just fine. The Nexon did that too, because if you look at the range, even if you were getting like 200, 250, that's more than enough. So
exactly,
you can. City is not a challenge.
I think that's why the Nexon has really aced it in that way. Just it's not got the best range, but it's got
just the right amount.
Just the right amount, minimum amount, which is fine to use as a city car. A lot of people are even taking it out of town. Again, these are the early adopters. You see them soldiering on. I mean, it's amazing how many Nexons
you can. I mean, we did the K2K, of course, but you got to do meticulous planning.
So that's right. I think I'm really proud of our Kashmir to Kanyakumari in the Posh. Not for anything other than being great content, is that it was a genuine drive of looking at the charging infrastructure. No gimmicks. No having to get a supplementary charger or mobile charger over there. It's what a typical customer would feel. And we did have a problem. It wasn't easy. Charging infrastructure on the highways is a problem. It's not so much the network itself. Charging infra is still very slow. There are 30 to 60 kilowatt chargers. The Taycan, you're looking at, an hour plus sometimes minimum to top up the battery. So not convenient at all. Again, fiddling with apps.
Correct. Different apps for different manufacturers, different suppliers.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the chargers don't work. That's another issue. So it's not very convenient, And, so I've always felt, why can't charging be almost as convenient? I'm not saying from a time point of view, but just from an operation point of view as filling up a gas. I mean, you've got all these apps over here. A lot of people, and we are a nation where we are not used to filling fuel, unlike in the West where you get out.
Do it yourself,
You do it yourself, put fuel in the tank yourself, then go and pay, in the kiosk, go to the counter and pay. I mean, here it's all done. Credit card machine comes to you, a guy fills it up, cleans your windscreen, all that sort of thing. I think an ideal thing would be is that, you just drove up to a charging station, you had someone with a gun there telling you, sir, kitna kilowatt chahiye? 15, 20, please. Let him plug in, and he just
does a payment.
He handles a payment with an app, and you just pay by credit card and leave the car parked, and whatever. I think signage is not there enough. Sometimes you have to really hunt for these chargers. They're not properly signposted, so it's a hassle. So again,
it is.
Coming to using cars long distance, you can do it. I don't think we are ready for it yet, and that's why. Things like sports cars and SUVs, I just don't think they work great as EVs. I definitely wouldn't buy one, an electrified one. But we can talk about that later. But again, I think now, the question is, should your next car be an EV? I think we've said, again, for town, definitely. But I think there are some issues which the early majority are facing, and they're more skeptical about it.
Yeah, in fact, absolutely. Like, for example, reliability. On the surface of it, yes, an EV has less moving parts. It's therefore more reliable, less service. But there's this other big sort of devil in it, which is software. So,
that's right.
It's now more or less the same, because on our long-term fleet, we are facing those software bugs as well.
Absolutely, and it's across. I mean, you've got, guys from... luxury car guys, they're all having software issues. I mean, I think software is really the biggest challenge in an EV. And I think manufacturers are still grappling with it.
Right.
So while it's interesting, I don't know, in the latest, in the recent Dubai floods, which were horrific, you saw all the EVs going through quite easily. So in the monsoon, there's nothing like an EV again.
Exactly.
You won't get hydrostatic lock and stuff like that. So they're really very reliable in that way. But it's just that the software is very glitchy, and you hear of people just getting stuck, everything going off. So I think they really need to work on the software, and I think that's where not only in India, but globally, a lot of manufacturers are grappling with.
Yeah. So that's one concern. The other bit is, should your next car be an EV? What happens when you want to sell it? Right. I think now the early adopters don't care, obviously, about this. They've bought into this new tech. They want the latest stuff. But I think the next wave are now worried, right? I mean, okay,
I think residual value or resale value is a bomb waiting to explode. I mean, there's no real trend on it right now.
You think it's that bad?
I think it could be pretty bad because there's just anecdotal evidence right now. But I think some banks are also hesitant to lend or give loans or fund the EVs because it's a high risk. So I think
you could be onto something. I mean, you're saying it's a bomb waiting to explode. Could be. I mean, if you look at Mahindra, they have their own leasing or subscription sort of offers, right? I was just seeing on an XUV 300, not the 3XO, the 300, which is there in the system. They're charging you some 30,000 rupees per month as a subscription fee for that car. On the 400, it doubles. But you don't actually pay double for that EV. So I think you're right. I mean, they're factoring a very low resale value when that car comes back.
No, I think if you see globally, that's what it is. And, I mean, don't forget, this technology can get obsolete very fast. I think what's also kind of amplified the problem is these price cuts Tata did with the Nexon. Mahindra's already giving huge discounts on the XUV 400. That's going to really murder the resale of these products. And I as I said, I think, they're just 4 to 5 years old. These since the Nexon started the whole wave of EVs into India. So they're still very new. They haven't come into this pre-owned market en masse in a big way.
There's not enough volume.
That's right. I mean, just anecdotal. For example, a friend of mine, I was just talking to him before this podcast to get a sense. He bought a used ZS EV, about 2.5 years old, 15 lakhs for what was 25 lakhs on road. So,
okay. It's not so bad, but it's not so good either.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so, So I think, it's still out.
But the ZS, maybe that helped it because there's few of those examples.
But again, MG isn't great on resale overall. You talk to brokers, you talk to dealers, and I've been talking to a lot of them. There's no real trend emerging yet as to how good or bad the resale is, but people are worried. And I just think logically, if you look at it, prices being cut like this.
Right.
Batteries, a battery pack which has a life, obviously that's going to be factored into the resale value. We can talk about battery life as well.
As another.
The fact that newer batteries come out, this technology can get obsolete far more quicker than an ICE vehicle can. All these factors add up to saying that, resale could be a big problem.
So, should that deter someone, or is it something you should factor in, like when you're buying? Like, be prepared.
I mean, for me, if I was buying a city car, just for the sheer experience of an EV, I would say to hell with it. Still go ahead. Because honestly, I'm hooked onto EV as a city car. I mean, I just love it.
True.
I mean, you're in your own zone. You're thinking of work. Obviously, when you're going out of town to enjoy as an enthusiast, it's different. Yeah. So I think if you're using it for the city, you have home charging.
Right.
Just go for it. I think, people who are once hooked onto an EV, they don't want to drive anything else. So, I mean, I know, my wife just loves driving an EV because it's just so easy to drive. I think all of us do.
True.
As I said, I have to fight with Gavin for something as small as a Comet, because it's got its own appeal. It's so small and you can, go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ioniq 5, again, fantastic. So I think we all love the EVs as our commute to office. Obviously, going out of town, it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
And though I've taken EVs to Mahabaleshwar, but that's more from a test point of view. I've always got my eye on the range meter. You can never get away from that. That's one thing that's always there at the back of your mind. You don't completely get that freedom when you're out, on long distance. So,
yeah. So I was just going to say, so that covers that. But what about battery life and, let's say, battery fires? Is that a reason why an EV should not be? Should we discuss that?
Well, I think,
should not be an next car.
Well, I think battery life, obviously, I think, manufacturer giving a warranty of whatever, 8 to 10 years. Now, that's the warranty. That means the battery can even last more.
Longer.
So clearly, you go into it with your eyes open. It's like a lithium battery is is going to have a life.
It has a life.
Yeah, but I think 8 to 10 years is a long time as well. So I think that could be a consideration. And I think this is what maybe I'm an early adopter. I'm thinking like an early adopter, so I would kind of diss these issues. But maybe a person who's looking at it as an investment, it can become a big issue. So again, we don't know what the true life is of the batteries, how people are, because the cars are still very new. But maybe there is a life.
Yeah, but I think the life also, what was an important point for a consumer to remember is that it is not that after 8 years, it's not going to work anymore. No. It's just that your range is going to come down.
That's absolutely.
So your Nexon long range might end up being the Nexon medium range after 8 years.
That's right.
So technically, I mean, you'd still be okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you would be okay. And I think, you just got to factor this into, your purchasing decision that this could happen. Or like, well, look, today, I mean, a diesel in NCR is only got a 10-year life. You got to get rid of it, or a petrol has got a 15-year life.
That's true.
So it's not just the EV which has an issue. Even ICE have it in NCR. It's a stupid rule, but that's a separate issue.
A separate podcast.
Yeah, separate podcast there. But clearly, this is something you can go in with your, you understand. I think battery fires has been something also which people have been concerned about, but less so right now. And I want to talk a bit on the battery fires because, first you've got to understand that lithium is a tricky material. And we all know that. Every time you take a flight, you know that lithium is a tricky material because you cannot put your power bank into your check-in bag because they don't want a fire going off where you can't access it. True. So that really tells you that lithium has got, it's got a little bit of a risk over there. But I think it's been well managed. I think what has happened is that early fires with, let's say some of the two-wheelers, we had one Nexon fire also, has kind of made everyone really worried. And they become big news.
Right.
Fact is that there are more ICE engine fires than EV fires for whatever reason. So I think, it's not something that people should be too concerned about. And I think also the testing right now and, I think recently, again, regulations put some really stringent tests for the batteries. In fact, it delayed some launches. Both Volkswagen and Skoda had to delay the launch of the ID.4 and Enyaq because they had to go through this whole series of tests, which go down to testing almost individual cell. Some people say it was too much over-regulation, but at the same time, it's all about safety. So everyone has to go through these procedures, regulations and tests for the battery as per the new standards. And then again, there's this whole debate about NMC and NFP.
Yeah.
So NMC clearly higher energy density, more chance of thermal runaway. But again, if you take your precautions, it's not like that. So LFP is, in a way more stable. But again, I like to kind of do the analogy of NMC, LFP, like NMC is petrol and LFP is diesel. Petrol is a lot more flammable, a lot more, tricky to work with, but you have your safeguards, your precautions, and it's fine. You don't not buy a petrol car on this off chance it might catch fire much more easily than a diesel car or explode more easily than a diesel car. That's where LFP is more like diesel to me. So I think fires is something which is not so much of an issue anymore. I think in fact ICE cars catch fire a lot more statistically as well. So I think, but I think these are all concerns for, as I said, the more skeptical EV buyers who are looking at it from an investment point of view. I think clearly we've seen that I fundamentally think that the home charging is still a big issue.
Right.
Because not everyone has access to it. You park your car on the drive, on the road. You don't, the RWAs or the societies, they don't make it easy to put in chargers, all that sort of thing. So I think that to me still is a fundamental issue.
So then, Hormazd, we've discussed all of this. I think very clearly we are saying go ahead. Your next car can very easily be an EV. My question to you is, what would be your EV? Which one would you pick if you were to add an electric vehicle to your garage right now?
I think my favorite right now is the Ioniq 5.
Yeah, I kind of knew that actually.
I just love the Ioniq 5. I just think it's just an amazing car for all that it does, for the price that it does. It gives me a luxury car feel. I find it, smoother than a lot of the German brands, a lot of space. It's got the range. The ride is fantastic. I just love the interior packaging. They made full use of that skateboard, which means, you've got this lovely space in front of you.
Correct.
It's just the sense of airiness, full flat floor, and
the zero gravity seats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's. But and it's just so smooth to drive. The switch gear, it's well made. I mean, that is my favorite right now.
So not,
I would not buy a sports car.
I was just going to ask you that. Not a Porsche Taycan, given that you're a big Porsche fan.
Never. I would not buy a Taycan for the simple reason I don't think, not only a Porsche Taycan, I wouldn't even buy any of the electric sports cars. I mean, even a Batista. I mean, to be honest, we set a top speed record on it. That acceleration was brutal. But, doing 358 kilometers, close to 360 kilometers, just felt like a non-event. It just went like that. There's something about EVs, they just don't have the emotion. The thing about them is that they are very one-dimensional in their performance. So it's just that they all behave the same. It's just that the intensity of acceleration is different. So they all have that straight off immediate surge and then they tail off at the end. So, for example, I've got a Cayman which is about the same as a Taycan and it's about half the power or what, but it's still such a joy to drive. I think for a sports car, to me, it's still ice. Just about the way it feels, just the character it has, the whole thing about the revs rising, the revs dropping. That's what sports cars are all about. And frankly, at the end of the day, also, how far can you keep going in them? Because range will still be an issue if you really want to go on a really long drive. So, and with an electric sports car, I think resale values are really an issue. I mean, you spend so many crores on a sports EV. It's like buying a quartz Rolex. What would the resale value be? There's no mechanical purity. There's none of the mechanical intricacy, the art of the engine, none of that in there. It's, as I say, it's like buying a high-end watch, like a Rolex, Patek Philippe with a quartz movement in it. Because at the end of the day, these things are quite commoditized, which is batteries and motors and stuff like that, which go into all cars. I think even that's probably the reason why cars like the Batista and all are struggling to find buyers, because what will the long-term value be? And all these other, hypercars which are there. I mean, so I think even the Remax and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think resale value, a big concern. And unlike an ICE car, which just seems to go up and up and up. While you still can buy an ICE, I would buy an ICE because, these cars are really going to be classics and you can really enjoy them. So, for the city, definitely EV 100%. But as a sports car, it's still ICE for me through and through.
Okay, Hormazd, so that's sports cars. You're very clear. But let's start at the lower end of the spectrum, right at the bottom. If we were to pick a budget EV, which should it be?
Well, I think at the budget end, we know what there is. There's the Tiago EV. There's a Citroen EC3. I think we did a comparison. Clearly, the Tiago, better value, more features, better performance. EC3, a nice solid car, very comfortable, good ride. Moving up, we have the Tigor, but I think the car that impressed us both is the Punch.
Is the Punch, absolutely.
I think they've really done an ace job with that. I think the negative of the Punch, which is also the ICE car, is that it's small. It's a bit cramped at the back.
Right.
It's a really compact car.
Right.
So clearly not great for families. But I think once you're driving it, the value they've given, and it's this new Sigma platform of theirs, which, I think they've really optimized. It feels nice and stiff. Because now even the battery pack is part of the body, so the torsional stiffness comes from there as well. And it really rides brilliantly. It's refined, everything. I think outstanding job. Clearly seating into Nexon sales a bit, which we are seeing. So coming to the Nexon, really the top dog. Tata Motors has taken the game forward more and more. So really at the budget end, it's Tata all the way.
It's Tata all the way. I think Punch and Nexon, both segments, and it's not for want of lack of competition. There is competition, but I think, as you said, they've done a phenomenal job.
I think competition has really been blown away. EC3 for one, really small numbers. XUV 400.
Yeah.
not a bad product in its own way. It's got its strengths, a bigger, it's got a bigger base, more space. It's a little punchier.
Right.
And, NMC battery, so you get that energy, density from it. It reflects in the performance. But I think, with the recent uplift, Tata just took the game so much more forward with the Nexon EV design, styling, interior, all that sort of thing. So I think really that's where they've scored. And going up a bit, we have the MG ZS EV.
Correct.
Again, good. In fact, overall, a better product, but I don't think it's really worth that extra amount. And as we spoke earlier, the resale is really bad. Maybe buy a second-hand one. Maybe buy a second-hand EV right now.
Yeah.
Might be good.
And I think also for the ZS, the other problem is it's kind of sits currently because, we don't have enough of models at every price point. In no man's land, it's not as cheap as a Nexon. And if you were to stretch, should you then stretch, just go higher up, perhaps look at an XC40.
Even the BYDs.
The BYDs,
Atto 3, for example, which is there. But I think BYD, we drove the seal.
Yeah, also remarkable.
I mean, I think it really tells you why the Chinese are at the top of the game by a country mile. I mean, I think we were both blown away by the BYD seal. I think just the way it rides, the ride and handling was outstanding.
Especially for a sedan.
For a sedan, it was really, something, to be honest, don't mean to sound any other way, but you don't expect it from a Chinese car maker. Not their strength, typically, the battery and technology is, but the whole car was really good.
Yeah.
Even interior quality was really good, though I think it's more an illusion of quality compared to the Ioniq 5, where I think is a much better built car. Which we are coming to, and we spoke about that. That again is my all-time favorite.
So the pick of that segment,
it's tough, but I would still go with the Ioniq 5 because I just like the way they've conceived everything. But BYD, for the price and the performance and the high-end one, I mean, you don't get more bang for your buck. I mean, it's really like sports car performance, for about 40-50 lakhs.
So let's talk, since we are at that price point, let's talk luxury. Luxury EVs. We've got, of course, the Germans who are in fact, all of the trio have their electric SUVs, sedans as well.
4 if you count Porsche.
4 if you count Porsche, true. So let's just say, among the SUVs, what should be the pick? I mean, we had a hard time choosing one, but I think we have a solution now.
Yeah, I think, honestly, you had the EQE SUV. Right. I think, Mercedes, I think, have maybe got the strategy wrong for EVs because they've made them too EV-ish, if you know what I'm saying. In terms of shape, EQS, not really an S-Class EV. EQE also doesn't have the road presence of a GLE, for example, so more blob-like, more organic shape, just to get that very low CD, which is so important for range. And Merc range is actually fantastic. You said that earlier, EQS, really one of the best range. I mean, it's got the best mileage. Again, going to Mahabaleshwar, that was a great test of it. Comfortably did it, whereas in an EQC a couple of years back, I struggled to get there and I had to make a pit stop.
Which isn't there anymore on the market.
No, it is. It just shows how much, EVs have progressed, and shudder to think what the residual value on an EQC would be. But, that's, I don't think there are many in the market. But, these things get, I wouldn't say, the technology changes really fast and they get better and better. But again, coming back to the luxury EV space, I think Mercs do well. I mean, that hyperscreen, the overall interior quality, refinement is fantastic. But I think the EQE, for me, the rear seat, really it's a compromise again, just the way the EQS was. I think the Audi is the other extreme, the Q8 e-tron, which we've been using as a long-term. Solid car, great ride. But it's almost for people who want something that they don't want people to know they're driving an EV. It's a bit too
understated and normal.
Yeah, and of course the touchscreen and all is now completely outdated. We've seen the new one which is coming on the Q6. So again, it's got its strengths, got its weaknesses.
But performance-wise, I think it's also like a very good all-rounder, right?
It's a great all-rounder. It's quite heavy. Coming down the Mahabaleshwar Ghat, you could feel the weight.
The mass.
So you could feel the mass. But it's a great performance. Yeah. Right. Superb highway car, very stable. In fact, I'm really warming to the Q8 e-tron the more I drive it. And I think, that's a car that endears itself to you once you start living with it. It's not got that immediate wow factor.
Exactly.
Like some of the Mercs have just by, the interior and stuff like that. But it really endears itself to you more you use it. And that comes to the BMW iX, which I think the iX50 right now, which we are testing, overall, it should have been the winner, but with the 40, just didn't have the range. I mean, for me, not able to do Mumbai, Pune back in one shot is a deal breaker, because you're going for a day trip for a meeting over there or just coming back. You can't be bothered about wasting time to charge somewhere for the return journey. So that was a struggle there. But I think now with the iX50, they've nailed that, and I think that would be my pick.
Yeah, I think so, because if I remember right, we had the biggest stumbling block was the range for the iX40.
Yeah.
This one's and the best part is, although it is pricier, it's still not out of the range of the other competitors.
Yeah, that's right.
It's in fact almost identical to the Merc. So that's good value. That's good value.
It is. I mean, BMWs, we know they've aced the EV side of it because they did the smart thing. We've seen it with the iX1 as well. Where clearly, that cloud platform, it can take both. So EV and ICE. And I think the real winner is the i7.
True.
Outstanding.
Exactly. On the sedan, I think they've
luxury,
knocked it out. Yeah.
Car of the year. It is just outstanding. i7, absolutely the standard for saloon EV. So I think that's where it is. Volvo, very interesting. I think, again, good bang for the buck. XC40 compact,
right?
But
crazy level
of performance. But now they've got the single motor version, a cheaper version. Yeah. So I think you've got something for everything. EQB, which we again ran as a long term, a 7-seater. So you've got that practicality.
Right.
But again, I think they've maybe stinted there. The rear seats, for example, felt like a flat bench. Some of the plastics not becoming of a Merc. So again, some compromises there, but again, a very efficient car. I think one thing that stands out about Mercs is they are very efficient, and their range really is superb. Unlike the Audi Q8 e-tron, which is so heavy, range and efficiency. I mean, range is good because it's a big battery. I mean, it's like having a gas guzzling V8 with a 100 tank.
Yeah.
So it's the equivalent to that. So but I really like the Q8, but it is heavy and it is not very efficient too. And you wonder. You don't feel it, honestly, the efficiency, because you're just plugging in. But when I was in Mahabaleshwar and it took me around 32 hours to charge it up, not a problem, which again showed the convenience. I would rather have my home plug at 3.3 kilowatts over there. It was even less, maybe under 3, 2.1, 2.2, so really slow over a fast charger. I mean, I was just thinking it's like running a couple of ACs for 32 hours. When you put it like that, it's not as, let's say, you're not really saving CO2 as much as you should. So again, for me, I think lightness and all makes a difference. Smaller EVs are better. I would prefer that. What have we got? We got the sports cars now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that leaves us with electric sports cars. We know. What do you think about the Taycan?
Taycan, great as an EV. Probably it's the most fun EV I've driven. Not that I would buy it.
Yeah.
But it is without a doubt the one that evokes the maximum emotions, but still nowhere close to an ICE. We've talked about this.
It's probably also because it's the only EV, I think, that has a 2-speed gearbox.
Yeah,
probably it does help a little bit,
and also the dynamics, the handling. Absolutely. So it is fun, and we drove it so much on the K2K.
Right.
It was great. I mean, again, taking it a step further, the Battista, unbelievable, shattering performance. But as we said earlier, again, it doesn't have
one dimension.
Yeah, very one dimension. EVs are very, very one dimension. And so I think that's I think you kind of covered the entire range almost
of electric cars. But there's also a whole bunch of them coming next year, or rather from this year and next year, right? I mean, and again, from first-time brand, like for example, Maruti, we've got Hyundai coming in an electric Creta.
Yeah.
So let's discuss those. I mean, should people wait for those electric Creta?
I think honestly, should you buy a next EV? Well, I think one way of looking at it is for choice. Maybe you could wait. Again, for city use, if you have charging, absolutely no problem. You can get it now. But I think for choice, there's a lot more happening. I'm very excited about the Maruti. I mean, we've been following that. We've broken that. It's a global product. 50% of that is going for export. Yeah. Still, that doesn't mean, it's built like a European car. The interiors, we don't know how they will be. We are not sure how good that will be. But we know it will be efficient. It will be reliable.
Jeep as well, probably.
Should be.
Super
smart.
Maruti.
It's been delayed by 6 months because of multiple issues, software issues, the cockpit domain controller, the CDC, problems over there. And again, it goes back to my point is software development is the nightmare for all EV makers, whoever it is. They are struggling sorting this out because a lot of the engineers have kind of transitioned from ICE to EV and they're learning on the job.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, for Maruti, I would say Suzuki, even Toyota, to delay a global product by 6 months is a big deal.
True.
So it just goes to show how challenging development process is.
But it's worth waiting for, you think?
I think it's worth waiting for. I'm quite excited about it because I think, we've been tracking it. We know the specs, BYD blade cells. They're going to have a four-wheel drive option. The range will be fantastic. I think the other one, of course, we're looking at is the Curve. That should be interesting, but I think we know what that will be. It is very much, derivative. I would say not so much of it is a all-new car, but
yeah,
still on the Nexon plan.
Familiar.
Yeah.
I'm actually also excited for the Sierra, Hormazd.
That's right.
Because, from what we saw, and Tata says that's
Correct.
90% of what we can expect.
Yeah.
It had the wow factor, a lot of space.
Sierra, absolutely. And it's a completely different design. It's to the Curve and the Nexon. It's upright, square, which again, very much more SUV. So you're right. I think Sierra is something definitely worth looking at. And, you've got the Harrier and the Safari also coming, but I'm not sure whether it'll come next year. Then you've got the, let's say the, what is the IMA platform, which was the Avinia, but I think that's been delayed, whatever people say.
Sometime
I think
away.
switching from the Avinia platform, the in-house startup platform, which I understand was being developed by Magna, that's what I heard. Now Jaguar is doing it. It has delayed the program. I mean, it has delayed by 6 months, but I think they're looking at a benefit of having the synergies of Jaguar with Tata Motors. So would be good. I'm sure it'd be a great product, but I think it could be expensive as well.
Yeah, and clearly not on this shopping list, though, because that's still some time away.
That is still some time away, absolutely. So I think Creta EV.
Right, the Creta,
I think Creta EV would be very interesting. Again, it's an electrified version of the Creta. So we know somewhat what to expect.
Which is a good start, actually.
It is a great start because Creta today is the standard for mid-size SUVs.
Exactly.
It's the benchmark. I mean, you always talk about a Creta rival. Volkswagen's coming out with the ID.4. That's right. They're coming out with the ID.4 from what we hear. But from what I hear, crazy price. I don't really have much hopes on that. Enyaq also is going to be there. Will be quite expensive.
So,
I think the Mahindra Born Electric, that's going to be quite exciting.
Those will be, yes,
yeah,
for sure.
I mean, the BO5, that's going to be really exciting. I think Mahindra's throwing everything into it. Right? But I think what we've seen is that, again, worry is software. Will the software be fine? So I think they're working very hard on that. But from what we've seen, the images we've seen, it looks quite radical.
Very radical. I think it's almost concept car-like.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be quite interesting how it does, But I think, that could be, how do I say, really the one that, surprises everyone if they get that right.
Yeah, true. Although I think the concept car looks, could be a deal breaker or a deal maker. It could swing either which way.
That's what they said about the 3XO. And everyone panned the 3XO's design. And it's not made a jot of a difference in the showroom. So again, social media at its best or worst,
It's all right.
Yeah, everyone became fashionable to pan the design, which is very thin. But I think people have liked it. So yeah, I think it could be. But I think, people are wanting something that is more standout these days.
Right.
Yeah.
True. Great. So great, Hormazd. That's, I think we've covered everything we wanted to discuss on should your next car be an EV. Very clearly, I think, what's the final verdict? Yes,
your next car should be an EV. I mean, there are a lot of riders. I think if you want to take it as a long-distance tourer, definitely not. But as a city car, forget about everything else. Forget about all the issues that there are. Because once you drive an EV, you'll really be hooked to it.
Right. And as you get hooked onto EVs, I hope you're hooked onto our podcasts too. They are always up Saturday, 11 a.m. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell icon. You'll get a weekly dose of all things automotive.